So,
So,
so one of the other male co-host that I thought like was really great to work with was Sol Penduga. I mean, we had the Y Academy at YFM at the time, which was like this internship program that gets young people in and they intern and hopefully land a job at YFM. And from what I remember, Saul was not going to stay at YFM. In other words, YFM didn't offer him anything, from what I remember. And I was like, no, man. There's something about this guy that is very intriguing, very interesting. I mean, he's got a great sense of humor. And he's just always got a way of like saying things that kind of poke at people, but for great conversation. So when I was moved to the Breakfast Show on YFM in 2010, I was like, that boy must be on the show. And I remember discussing this with Tsoko Musito because I trust her opinion on like radio and what works and what doesn't, and she was like kind of in the same thinking. And we had some magical like radio moments. I don't know when last you heard a really good radio skit or like a spoof or whatever you want to call it. We used to literally manufacture that stuff in those YFM studios daily. It was like a drug for us. Like we had so many features on our show that required us to do that. And that was the creativity and the beauty and the ingenuity of the kind of radio that we were doing. And he was just perfectly suited for that. So, years down the line, when Fresh called him and said, come join me on 5FM, I was honestly not surprised because he is, one of the best co-hosts to have. When you're having a radio show, you want someone like him as your springboard, right? Because he does it so well. But it started somewhere. And sometimes there's something that you have in you that no one can teach you because it's in you. And this is the thing I talk about when I talk about, radio will tell you whether you belong on air or not. And fortunately for him, it gave him a really good deal. And now he's got an entire radio career going. So it's not always females, but I've had an interesting journey. I mean, if I think about just like Metro alone and the amount of or the number of females that I got to work with in like at times a very short space of time. It was quite interesting.
The turnover was quite high.
I mean, when I joined Metro, they also brought over Sammy Sosa. So Sammy. We got to do a show together for about 6 months. It was like awesome 6 months, but it was only about 6-7 months. And then after that, they tried out Pearl Tusi, and we vibed together. I mean, she enjoyed radio at the time, and I think she had already had like a vibe with Fat Joe on the weekend, so that was quite interesting. And then at some stage, it was Lerato Kganyago, who is somebody that I already had a really great relationship with, but I had no idea that she was actually interested in radio. And we had a time together on the Drive show. And then Matchaba Ndlovu then also joined Metro at the time, and I got to work with her as well. And with her, it's interesting because I enjoyed listening to her radio shows when she was on Power FM. I enjoyed watching her talk shows on TV because I think she's
remember you telling me you're a huge fan.
Yeah, I was.
She was coming to work.
Yeah. At the time of her joining, I was a huge fan, and so and when I was on Club 808 on ETV, and she had a talk show on ETV, we would meet like on station events all the time. So we just had this sort of thing, and she would listen to my shows, and I would listen to her shows. But little did I know that I would ever work with her. And it was a huge surprise for me. I wish the station could have done things differently in how that happened, because I feel like you can't tell someone like me with all my years of experience that they're going to work with someone like her with all her years of experience in broadcasting and a brilliance literally the day before. that tomorrow this is going to be your partner and you guys are going to do a radio show, I felt it was not showing respect to me and not showing respect to her. Like, she's built a brand. Like, respect her. I've built a brand. Respect me. So that was one moment that didn't sort of go down well with me, because I thought to myself, at least, give me the decency to have a conversation about, my own career, to say, okay, we're bringing someone on to join you on the show, and this is the reason. And yes, it's not up to you to decide, but this is the vision behind it. We would love for you to buy in. That's what you do.
Yeah.
Right. And I thought that was 101. But because I'm professional and she's professional, we literally made it happen, and we won the radio award for that. And it was all like, okay, cool. In the end,
No.
I mean, management was happy because they thought, damn, okay, so
Because
we
your
were
dynamic,
right.
because your dynamic was quite fiery.
It was.
You know?
And this, again, that afternoon drive show that I did with Mas Chaba was one of the most memorable shows we did, for many good reasons,
Yep.
and also many very controversial reasons. But I think one of the things that really irritated me about how things were done was the disregard for the human factor when you're putting a radio show together.
Mm.
To bring someone in and say, listen, this is what we want to do with your show. Yes, have an input, but ultimately we'll decide. We're your management, and I get that, and that's okay.
Mm.
But bring me in, and there were so many instances where I was like, left surprised, like, what?
Mm.
Okay. And I just thought to myself, well, I mean, how do you expect to get the best out of me, right, if that is how you operate? I don't know if things like that were done deliberately or management were always under some sort of pressure. I mean, I don't know. But that's the impact that it had on me, was that. And these are people that I all have a relationship with. Or every single presenter that I've worked with at Metro, I've had a relationship with, because I've met them before we worked together. They've been in the industry, I've been in the industry. So that is what made all those shows work.
Mm.
Because I feel like if it was any other person, things would have fallen apart. Because I've seen radio shows being put together like that, where you find out the day before go time that, oh, by the way, tomorrow you're going to be working with this person. You can't do radio like that.
But I suppose you have to also respect the fact that you're the talent, and then they're the producers, and they have an idea of what is going to work on air.
No, and I take that.
And I quite like the element of surprise, because you can't manufacture those moments. And I think that you and Masachaba's show was incredibly entertaining. And I know it was probably hugely frustrating for both of you because your views were so different. But I guess for like an afternoon drive show where you just want to like drive home and listen to like some fun banter and things, it really did get pretty.
No, it got heated. And I think that's the exciting thing about radio. And obviously hindsight is also a good teacher. But I think what is important is, and I think for anyone that is still young in radio, that's the sort of stuff that can happen. And not just at the SABC, it could probably happen anywhere else. But the point is, my lived experience, dictates that the majority of those kinds of incidents happened when I was at the SABC. So,
what is the lowest point of your career? Like the lowest moment, the worst thing that's ever happened to you on air?
Sure. It was really hard, right? It's a low in its own way. When I had to come on air the day after finding out that my dear friend and colleague Pearl Shongwe has passed away, that was difficult. That was, yeah. Ordinarily, if you find out that someone close to you has passed away, you don't go to work the next day. Mm-mm. You don't. But I felt it absolutely necessary to honor her in that way and to be on air literally the following day. And that's the thing about being a broadcaster, is that sometimes you have to take bullets that most people would not take. You have to put yourself in moments that most people would die being in. You know what I mean? So that was difficult. I don't know how I got through that show, to be
I
honest.
suppose that's the difference between professional and experience, and understanding the idea that your show is 3 hours and you set things aside and you do your job, and then you get out and then you go and deal with whatever you're dealing with at home. I mean, that must be incredibly difficult to be going through something like a breakup or something, and then come on air and have to act, basically.
I mean, I've had moments where, dealing with like a breakup, something that completely shatters your life, and having to be on air that very afternoon. You have to be on air. Like, you have to be on air. Like, nobody cares whether, Rome is burning.
Just play a lot of music.
Play music, 10-second links, whatever it is, but you need to show up and you need to be present in the studio, because management is expecting a warm body to be sitting behind that microphone. So, I mean, those are moments that were difficult moments to sort of balance your obligation to your job and also like just being a human being.